So, Matt, I've got a important question to ask you.
Hit me with it.
Should the Nicki Minaj player model in Modern Warfare 2 have a different shaped hitbox? Right answers only. Let's go.
Yes.
And why is that?
Because it's got to be realistic, and Call of Duty is always striving for realism. So clearly, it needs to have a realistic hitbox.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, like, say somebody's playing the new Pink Nicki Minaj, and maybe they're hiding behind a telephone pole, for example. You see where I'm going with this,
Can you hide
Matt?
behind a telephone pole normally as a normal character?
So, say they go profile, right? They're doing that like that sideways thing, you know?
Yeah.
I think there might be portions of that character model that may be visible.
So this is news to me. I didn't even know that there was going to be a Nicki Minaj character in Call of Duty. This is incredible.
Well, I didn't know until last week. Oh, did you not know at all?
Well, not until I saw your comment here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's cool. It's appropriate. I'd play the character model if I could play COD, but I don't think they're going to like make her like Odd Job, you know?
Is it in the game already?
I don't know, but I do know it carries over into Modern Warfare 3. So if you spend that Nicki Minaj money now, you get her when the new game drops. I love COD.
It's perfect.
They get to do things that Battlefield doesn't get to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I don't think people would stand for Nicki Minaj in Battlefield World War II or something.
I mean, they got Tom. It's not actually Tom Cruise, but everyone said it looked like Tom Cruise from Battlefield 5. But that's besides the point. And that was criticized heavily as well.
Yeah. Well, I think we should intro people to the podcast. Welcome to the Level With Me podcast. I'm LevelCap. This is Matimi0.
I'm Matimi0, yes.
He's Matimi0. We haven't figured out how to do the intros.
No, we have not.
Do I intro him?
No.
Does he intro himself? I'm super famous on YouTube. He's super famous on Twitch.
Yeah, that's how we look at it. Mm-hmm.
You can look at it. Yeah, Matt's ego is out of control. Just give you a little background on him. And we're doing a weekly podcast here on Wednesdays. And we've already got some Patreon supporters, which I'm excited about because it now covers the cost of Autopod, which is a $30 a month subscription that edits our podcast for us.
We're doing it.
Super cool.
We're doing it.
We're making it, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen. So last week was Gamescom. Tons of crazy stuff happened. I'm sure you were glued to the news and not playing Baldur's Gate and Armored Core 6.
It was exciting news, but I also was glued to Baldur's Gate, and you're not wrong. I have over 24 hours in Armored Core already. I'm loving it.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
When did it even come out? How'd you get that many hours into it?
Don't judge me. Don't criticize a gamer for being a gamer. How dare you?
Yeah,
I think it came out like Thursday.
Okay. One of the fans wanted you to like do a deep dive into FromSoft games on the podcast. And I was like, well, that would be a Matimi0 subject because I haven't tortured myself with the FromSoft difficulty.
I'm all about that. I love From Software is one of my favorite developers, hands down.
Have they made a bad game?
Debatable. Some of their earlier stuff was a little rough here and there before the Souls series, but I would argue that everything. I mean, some people think Dark Souls 2 is a little rough as well, but pretty much it's just been bangers all the way until now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So one of the things from Gamescom that I've been following, because it's this weird game out of left field, nobody knew it was coming, is the Delta Force game. And we chatted about it a little bit last week, but we've gotten more trailers and a really weird, it's a little awkward behind the scenes dev video on the game.
Oh, I missed that. I didn't know anything about that.
It's hard to know because the devs are clearly English as a second language. So they're reading off a script that's like, sounds like I'm so passionate about this game, and it just seems weird. You're like, is this super scripted, or did somebody translate what they actually wanted to say?
Yeah.
And this is what it sounds like. But it doesn't seem like a traditional Delta Force game. It seems sort of like Battlefield meets Call of Duty meets some other funkiness in there.
That's what I got from the trailer. Did they expand upon it in the video, the dev video?
The website expanded on all the classes and stuff like that.
Oh, so there's classes. Okay.
There's assault, medic, recon, and
engineer,
or support, something like that.
Okay,
I don't know. It's basically Battlefield.
yeah.
And then they have, but the classes are like characters, so it's like 2042 Battlefield.
Perfect, of course, because you always got to sell those cosmetics.
Yeah, and then the multiplayer game mode it sounds exactly like Frontlines from Battlefield. So
okay,
like
so
the
pushing forward. I love that formula, by the way. I love it.
I do too. I mean, I'm for sure going to play the game because it's free to play. So
I didn't know it was free.
What do you got to lose to try it out? When I say I'm going to play the game, I'm going to try it out.
Your time.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's all we got.
That's true, Matt. Well, I've got an afternoon to give the game. I've got an afternoon to give it.
I am excited to give it a try because even though it does look a little jank, and every time they cut, it looked like something was about to break, especially that helicopter animation. It's in development. I'm gonna give it a try. It does look interesting. And I always like larger scale Battlefield style games, so I'm up.
Yeah. I've noticed that some of these free-to-play games coming from other markets over to our markets have kind of figured out how to appeal to the Western audiences who don't want overly monetized or overly pay-to-win mechanics.
Right. We are pretty adverse to that here, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you played Caliber, which is that third-person
I did.
shooter.
It was okay.
Yeah. And that one was free to play, and it didn't feel overly monetized or like overly pay to win. So
though I only played it one time, so clearly it didn't really grab me all the way. But it wasn't bad. But it just kind of felt like a standard third person shooter with tons. I think they had like 100 characters. It was insane how many.
So many.
Yeah, it was wild.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, it gives you variety there.
Especially considering had that game come. You know what? Doesn't matter. Just to have it 100 characters like League of Legends, and was the game just in development forever?
I think it went to like alpha a bunch and got a lot of feedback and they were changing stuff.
Gotcha.
But I don't think the characters are quite as diverse as League of Legends.
No, not even close, but still.
You're not going to throw a hook weapon at somebody and pull them over.
It's still an FPS,
crazy.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So I see some of the things you wanted to talk about on here, Matt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you watch any of the Escape from Tarkov Arena gameplay?
I did. I think it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I am confused by why it's $35.
I think they need the money.
I do. Yeah. Because it's any other situation, people would be like, so this is an asset flip. Every other game like PUBG or whatever has the TDM modes attached to it that you can practice your FPS combat in. I'm remaining very cautious about it, but I do want to play it because I like the idea of Tarkov's gunplay in a more accessible format.
Yes.
I don't enjoy Tarkov because I don't want to run around for 15 minutes and then die to a sniper in a bush, you know. Right. It doesn't appeal to me, and I think a lot of other gamers feel that way. Obviously, Tarkov's very popular, but I think there's a lot of people on the fence of like just jumping into it because it has that insane difficulty level. So if you take all that hyper realism weapon mechanics where you're bandaging yourself and the bullets don't penetrate certain types of armor, and you have all different springs and different everythings that you can mod your gun with to get the performance the way you want, I know that appeals to a lot of people, just not necessarily the gameplay. So maybe it will do well. Maybe they can craft a cool like TDM-esque style game around it, but I don't know if the $35 price point is gonna.
Now you do get it if you have the Edge of Darkness version of the game for free, because the Edge of Darkness is like $100 or whatever. So you do get it with
$150, Matt.
I knew it was expensive. I didn't remember it was that expensive.
Yeah.
So you do get it with that. And
Do
since
you
like
have the Edge of Darkness version?
I do, yes, because
Okay.
a viewer basically was like, "You were buying this right now," and they just gave me $100. I was like, "Okay, doing it." But so that, and a lot of the Tarkov community already has the Edge of Darkness, so this will just be for.
I wasn't aware because I know that the base price for Tarkov is $50, right?
It's
So-
40, 50, somewhere around there.
Okay.
It's not the full 60, 70 like it is for everything else. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm not into the Tarkov world enough to know how many people bought the Edge of Darkness version or like what benefits come with it, but it just seemed like a version, this new thing, the Arena, would be something that would be less accessible if they put that $35 price tag on it. But if everybody already has Edge of Darkness, then
Well, not
maybe
everybody, but there is a big portion of the community that
Okay.
has it. Yeah, because while some people might argue it's not pay to win, it gives you a pretty big advantage in the game to have the higher version, at least because of your stash size. You have a pocket that you can bring. You know what the pocket, right? The alpha container.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So
I didn't realize that was tied to the Edge of Darkness version.
Yeah, that's why everyone gets it.
It sounds like they're doing something similar with Arenas, where if you say you don't own the Edge of Darkness version, if you pre-order it, you actually earn 10% more currency in the game. So I'm like, that's a pretty big advantage.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see. The thing that I think is going to be the most interesting is if they do integrate some of those lose your character type mechanics, because it seems like you buy characters in the game, then those characters come with an arsenal of weapons that you can then use in multiplayer. But I'm wondering if those characters are permanent. Once you buy them, are they permanent, or can you lose them? That would be more interesting, I think, if they actually integrated some of that Tarkov lost mechanics into a more traditional multiplayer.
Yeah, but if it's supposed to be a TDM style or a game mode where you're getting in regularly, how would you incorporate that? Are you just constantly buying characters and then they're dying off? Or are you only able to? So that's the thing. Is
maybe you keep the character for the match, and then depending on if your team wins or I don't know.
If you lose, you just lose your character. I mean, yeah, it's possible.
Maybe they're cheap, right? So you can just buy a whole bunch of characters.
But then you could
like,
argue why even have the penalty to begin with, you know? I'm just interested
they'll probably
to see,
be permanent.
I'm just interested to see if people will enjoy, because I do enjoy the Tarkov's gunplay and like what the tenseness of Tarkov. But that's the whole thing, is the entire game revolves around the tense action.
Yeah.
And if you remove that because there's no longer as much of a penalty for getting taken out, right? Will the actual gunplay and the gameplay, the core gameplay, be able to keep the arena interesting for long term, right? You know where I'm going?
Yeah. I was thinking about that today also, is the appeal to Tarkov. It might look like the milsim stuff, but I think a huge portion of that is also the risk factor.
Yeah.
Right? That intensity. And so what do you have if you remove that? Well, you have what's that milsim shooter that was very easy to get into? Insurgency Sandstorm.
Yes. Yeah.
So we've already got some milsims that make it super easy to get into, that have the more realistic weapon mechanics, and they're not that popular, right? Granted, you could
Insurgency has
poke
done
some
well
holes
over the
in-
years, but you're right.
Yeah, but it's died off in popularity, and not a lot of other people are trying to mimic that formula, right? If Insurgency exploded, there'd be a bunch of copycats that are like, we got to get in on this market, but
I do think the name alone will carry it for a significant time. And it could just be a great place where people will just like, yeah, I really like Tarkov. And it's just fun to get in engagements and also learn the game, because there's so many moments where you use a new weapon or you try a new loadout and you just flail because you don't know how it performs. And having a place where you can use it against other players will be a really great not maybe introduction, but a great way to get better at just the core game itself, because your character also levels up in Arena and it levels up in the game as well.
Yeah, I feel like that feature in itself is going to become so crazy valuable to Tarkov players. Or like, I don't want to try and level all my stuff in this crazy punishing environment. I'll do it in Arena instead.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. I'm excited to try it out for sure. I don't know if it'll hold my attention, but it's cool that they're doing it, and we'll see if that $35 price point actually hurts the amount of people playing it or not.
I'm excited. I want to give it a try. I like new FPS games, and technically it's not new, but you know.
Well, in the same vein of Stalker, Tarkov, I was going to say Stalker, because Tarkov is arguably inspired by Stalker. A lot of games were.
Yeah.
And the Stalker 2 demo was shown at Gamescom along with a new trailer for Stalker 2.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I did. And I liked what I saw, but it was also a clear downgrade in terms of fidelity.
Yeah, I did like a deep dive on it, and I read, because they had a 15-minute gameplay demo at the event, which you couldn't record or show anything from.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't remember seeing any of that.
Right. But apparently the trailers from that demo, and a lot of people who played it said they really enjoyed it and they're really excited for the full game after playing it. It's always hard to know, though, because you're just like, this guy's just so excited to be at Gamescom.
They're clearly there because they enjoy, or they're excited for the game. So that's gonna rub off on them.
It sounds like the gameplay is definitely going to live up to the original Stalker games.
Oh, good.
And that there might just be some kind of rough polish issues at the moment.
I wouldn't be surprised, especially the circumstances that they're currently going through.
Yeah. But they did push the game's launch back to Q1 2024, so that could be enough time to actually iron out those things, because it was slated for a December release this year. And so it seems like they're pretty well anticipating, okay, we're going to need more time to lock this in.
And I'd rather them push it back if they're not ready. Completely understandable. Though it is, I mean, graphics don't really matter at the end of the day, but man, some of those trailers that they were showing off at the beginning were incredible with the lighting.
They looked so good.
It was wild. Having like a character walk and you would see the board like creak down. Like the technology was awesome. And so to go from that, and then the trailer they showed off was like, I get it, but it is unfortunate.
It does bring up that classic like No Man's Sky thing where the initial trailer is amazing, or the Watch Dogs trailer.
I don't think it's going to be that to that extent.
No.
At least I'm hoping that the gameplay will be there.
Yeah.
But I hear you.
Yeah. Well, no, I know a decent amount about the Unreal Engine and what you can do from a pre-rendered perspective and from a gameplay perspective. And if they're able to push the graphics as far as they did for sort of pre-rendered trailer stuff, it means that down the road, they could potentially just leave those settings in there for people to unlock as they want. You know, like if we get the RTX 7000 in another like
modding
5
and stuff
years.
Too?
Yeah, for modding, or just like down the road, we get twice as fast, 3 times as fast computers. They're like, oh, hey, you want to turn on these crazy visual
the
settings
Crysis
now?
Effect.
Exactly. Yeah. Crysis. Even the remaster of that game didn't run well.
No. I remember I got a new PC in college, and I was like, yes, I want to test this game on Crysis because I hear it's incredible. And I got like 10 FPS, and I was like, this is so great.
You know what the problem with Crysis was? In that it didn't scale because they built the engine or the game around basically the fact that CPUs were increasing their megahertz like crazy fast every year. And that was the benchmark at which computers were getting faster. Then they kind of hit the cap at which they could increase the megahertz. They just ran into actual physical barriers. And then they started going the multi-core route. Well, Crysis just wasn't scalable for multi-core stuff at all. So
they were hard capped.
Yeah, basically. So then the "Can it run Crysis" meme just lasted forever because people were like, "I got this new computer."
Because you literally can't.
Yeah, you just can't run it.
Yeah.
And then even the remaster, for whatever reason, still ran like garbage.
But I hope the modding scene does take off. If I don't know if they've announced it. I haven't been paying that close attention. But
yeah, it's going to support mods.
Good. Because the original Stalker, like there's literally mods where it's like an entirely new game. The entire game is modded, which is nuts. Like
well, I don't
Stalker
think anyone
Anomaly
plays the original games, really. They all play Stalker
they all play
Anomaly.
exactly, 100%.
Which I don't even know how it's legal because it's like totally free.
I don't know. I have no idea. But it's kept the community going, and that's been good advertisement for Stalker too. Who knows how
Yeah.
many they would be like? Would they really be selling that many more copies if there wasn't the? I would argue that they've probably made more because of the mods than less.
Considering that you don't have to buy anything to play
Well,
Stalker
for like
normal.
Stalker 2 coming out.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same. I'd have to read into it. I know the company stuff might have switched around a little, and I'm not sure if it's all of the original devs or some of the original devs or whatever.
Okay.
But it is an interesting story. I'm gonna have to do a deep dive into all of that stuff. I don't know if you've read the book Stalker.
No.
Okay, and there's a movie for it too, which I don't necessarily recommend. I think you'd watch the movie if you love the book, but I wouldn't watch the movie if you haven't read the book.
Okay.
But it's a solid book. When I read it, I'm like, man, this is like top 10 sci-fi books for me.
Wow.
It's very good. But what's interesting in the book, and this isn't really a spoiler, but in the movie, or sorry, in the game, it's based around like radiation from the Chernobyl accident and weird stuff happening in that zone.
Yep.
And in the book, it's sort of like explained in that they don't really know what it is, but they think it's like alien debris that like somehow hit the planet and started messing with our physics and the laws of reality in those zones where the debris hit the zones.
So it's not just the radiation. So is that what? Because there's all this alien talk going on right now in politics.
Here we
Are
go,
we-
Matt.
are we
This
gonna-
is what I want to get into here, actually. Let's just get the alien posters up
Yes,
on the
there we
background.
go. This is no longer gaming podcast. Now we're gonna go into alien conspiracy theories. I'm here for it.
Me too. I'm excited for it. Here's the thing is like everybody who brings it up in like those Senate hearings and stuff, and there's like a film producer associated with it. And when he starts talking about it, you're like, oh no, like this guy's like a little kooky. But then the military dudes are like, yeah, we saw this thing and it looks like we don't know how to describe it. I'm
Yeah.
just going to describe it to you in military terms. This thing was doing things that we can't do, and we're flying the most advanced aircraft in the world. So
I like how like no one's cared though.
yeah, that's
Like
the
some
craziest
people
thing.
are just like, like, show me proof, show me the aliens, and then I'll believe you.
This is my impression of like the average person learning about aliens today. You know, they'll be like, "Oh, that's cool.
that's cool.
Swipe left,
Yeah,
swipe
that's
right, whatever."
It is cool, but once like we've heard this kind of song and dance for a while now, where there'll be some conspiracy theorists, and they'll be like, "Yeah, we have proof," but it's like, just show us, show me the aliens. Show
I
me
mean,
them.
like the dude in the Senate hearing was literally saying there are biologicals that
Yeah.
were recovered.
Show
with
them
the,
to me,
with the
LevelCap.
spacecraft.
Show
and-
them.
Yeah, I know. And then the senator's like, okay, well, like, who do we talk to? He's like, well, we need to like do a like sidebar or whatever they do, you know. And you're like, it sounds cool though, man. I'm
does.
surprised they should make a game about like those specific types of like UAVs.
I'd play it.
Maybe you got to hunt them down in your F-18. That'd be sick.
There you go.
Battlefield 3, you're taking off in the aircraft carrier scene, you know, and then you just go hunt down the little Tic Tacs.
That's what the next battle should be. Battlefield Aliens. There you go. I'm playing.
dude.
Yeah, some alien technology intermix. You know.
I'd be down for it. I mean, they did 2142, which
Why
was
not?
like robots and
Yeah.
hover things. Go for aliens, man.
Why not?
Why not?
I mean, I'd prefer another setting, but sure.
Was that movie Battle for Los Angeles or something?
I never
Do you
saw it. I
remember
heard
that?
it was horrible.
It was terrible, but visually it's probably what a Battlefield versus Aliens game would look like, where it's all like military guys running around with their M4s and whatever.
Getting
and
dunked on by aliens.
yeah, well, oddly they fight back pretty efficiently, so you're just like, these guys traveled from a different solar
Yeah.
system and they're like having firefights and
They're
losing.
getting wrecked by M4s. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But that's what Battlefield versus, they'll do it one day when they're creatively bankrupt, you know.
Yes.
Maybe that's what Andrew Wilson, CEO of EA, was talking about in the recent earnings call when he said it's going to be, what was the language? It was like reimagined experience or something like that.
We've cracked the code.
We've cracked it. It's aliens, dude.
The best Battlefield Alien movie though is Live Die Repeat Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, so good. They're making a sequel.
I know. Well, I've heard that for rumor for like years. Are they actually making a sequel?
I think it's one of those things where they have it locked in budget wise, and then they're just waiting on like both those actors to become free.
It is fantastic. I love that movie.
So good. So good. Yeah, it is a top sci-fi movie for sure. When you're just like, it's got great action, great narrative. Like you could do all this fun stuff with it. Yeah,
cool characters.
Groundhog Day, but with aliens and, and like mech suits, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and I think it resonated with me too because it reminds you of video games. You just repeat the same level until you beat it.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're totally right. You're like, oh, I messed up that time and got like impaled horribly, or like got my skin burned off in an explosion. You just have to wake up with that memory every day. It's good stuff.
Sounds like PTSD ready to happen.
Yeah. So my weekend's been interesting. A new Star Citizen patch dropped. Not for everybody, but for the PTU, which is the public test universe for the alpha game. The alpha's alpha.
At first I thought it was just released for a special, like you were part of like this elite crew of Star Citizen testers or something.
They do have an elite crew, but I didn't sign up for it because it's all NDA stuff, and I just don't want to. I don't want to walk the line, right? I don't want to have played something and then
try to remember what was on and what wasn't.
What I can and can't talk. It's just too much. Some of the content creators do, and I'm just like, nah, because then you also get in the weird slippery slope area of, and I remember this with like certain Battlefield stuff where you're like trying to make a comment on what you think something's gonna be like in the future.
It makes it feel disingenuous.
No, yeah. So I just don't want to. I don't want to do it. You know?
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah. So I'm in the wave 1, and it's very buggy, but it's pretty cool.
Buggy?
Like, yeah. It's even buggier than before, Matt. But
that's buggier than before. Weren't the servers just like exploding?
Yeah.
And it was unplayable for like a month?
2023 has been a rough year for the franchise, dude. That's
unfortunate.
Yeah, they tried to implement their new ground tech, and it broke everything, and now 2023 is the fix-it year for that new ground tech, because they're not walking it back. It's like absolutely core to the future of the game, so like we just have to get it working, and it's going to take a while. And you're like, okay. And so the game's been a bit rough for a while.
Are they getting there?
I don't know. Here's the thing. So most of the budget, this isn't like confirmed information, but it's more or less public knowledge that most of the budget and dev resources are going into the single player version of the game, Squadron 42. And
fair.
Sometimes assets from the single player will get ported into the persistent universe, the multiplayer version, and they'll look cool and stuff, but it's just not getting the same amount of time and features and time spent just on refining the persistent universe. And it does make sense when I look at it from an overall business perspective, because they did promise Squadron 42 at the very beginning. They have to deliver that game. And from their perspective, they're like, well, we gotta finish the single player and ship it so we can get it out there and get it to the fans. And so they're just putting most of their resources into it.
We saw the big actors years ago showing their performances.
So long ago.
Yeah.
They had a gameplay vertical slice walkthrough in 2017 that looked incredible.
I remember that.
Yeah. And it's a lot later than that.
2017.
2017, man. Pretty wild stuff. So this year, CitizenCon is happening in October, and people are thinking that they might announce a release date for Squadron 42, and it might be like next year, but I don't know, man. They got to do something big. It's pretty rough, but the game is still funding the heck out of itself.
It's got 600 million, didn't it?
600. It passed 600 million in crowdfunding, which is
breaking
all kinds of records.
That's half of. That's more than half of. What would I do? I would buy you, LevelCap.
You could buy me.
I
for
would
600
buy you.
mil.
Yeah, damn right I would.
I mean, my price comes way before 600 mil, but I'll pretend that, 600 mil is the cutoff for me, for sure.
You'd come live with me is what I'm saying. I don't know. That's like, it's unbelievable. I think it's now, isn't that the biggest funded video game ever? I think it's been that status for a while now.
Not only has it been one of the, so it's kind of in this weird realm where not only is it one of the largest crowdfunded projects ever, it might actually be the largest crowdfunded project, outside of video games, but it's also arguably one of the most expensive video game developments ever as well. Like they put Starfield in somewhere over 200 mil for its development cost.
It's still a lot, but
yeah, right. I don't know how much GTA 5 was. A lot of these studios don't give specific numbers on it, and usually a third or more of that cost goes to marketing alone,
Mm-hmm.
Where I don't think Star Citizen's putting as much into marketing, but
they don't have to. It's always in the news.
Yeah, but they do make a ton of trailers and show off the game. So I guess that could be marketing to an extent. And they've currently got almost 1,000 employees, and they're aiming to increase the employee number to around 1,500 to 1,700, which seems
How do you
wild.
manage that?
They have tons of studios everywhere. So my thinking on it is that the single player got so big that they had to divide the story into, I believe, 3 episodes. So Squadron 42 episode 1 will be the first game.
Okay.
And then they'll have like episode 2 and 3. So I think they just want to keep making those single players and developing the multiplayer simultaneously. So they basically just have to build out the teams even bigger, which is the only thing I can think of that makes sense for trying to hit 1,500 active employees for a single game. They bought an entire studio recently because they were working with the studio to develop a lot of the web side of Star Citizen, and then the studio got really involved in more of the game development side, and then they were doing so much work they just decided, there goes my pick up the kids alarm.
You gotta go pick up the kids.
Gotta go pick up the kids. Then they just decided to buy the studio because they had, I guess, all
because
this
why
money.
not? You got so much money.
That is sort of a gray area for me, right? Imagine if you gave me like $1 million to make a game, and I'm like, I bought a studio, Matt, with like $500,000. You're like, but I paid you to make a game. And you're like, yeah, but I need the studio to make the game. But now I own a studio. I don't know. It gets weird, right?
Star Citizen's in a weird place.
Territory. Yeah.
I wish them all the best. I wish that they just could get it working.
Yeah.
Because the premise is fantastic. They just got to get there.
Nobody else will make this game.
Of course
because it's too expensive and the ambition is too insane. But
maybe with AI coming out, and if that becomes more prominent and those tools can somehow fix the issues that are currently being plagued in this space, maybe they could do a lot of the work behind the scene, but
I don't really know how AI would benefit the specific situations they're in right now, but I do think it's cool for video games. Have you seen the like interactive chat
when
stuff?
I say AI, I'm talking more of, so you saw the Unreal presentation where they would show off like, hey, we've got a river bed, and
oh yes,
so
I see what you're saying.
AI is such a terrible term because it's not really, it's technically
Yes.
AI, but it's generating landscapes for you, right? Beautiful landscapes, and it does it really well and quickly, and you're not having to have someone just meticulously put everything down, and hopefully it's well optimized. So that kind of technology could then allow them to, have their attention focused to the more system focused stuff. You understand where I'm going with that? Yeah.
Yep. I think it will, and it's going to be more on the graphical side of things.
Mm-hmm.
The main roadblock for Star Citizen right now is, without going down the rabbit hole, is the server meshing tech.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to say, okay, we've built this giant universe. How do we now get thousands of people into it as opposed to whatever their server cap is now? It's somewhere around 100 or something like that. I think they were messing with 200 at one point. I can't remember if they pushed to it or not. But yeah, so that stuff is not in the realm of AI, at least as far as I know what AI tools can do for them. But I am excited about AI in video games. Have you seen those demos of the interactive chat NPCs in video games?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
They're pretty cool.
I find it is really cool, and I find because everyone, and I get why users are and artists and creators are really scared about stuff like this, because people are, they're worried their job's going to be taken and stolen by AI.
Sure.
But the idea of walking into a tavern in Elder Scrolls or whatever, and saying to your microphone like, "Hey, what's going on in this area?" and then they respond dynamically to that, sounds really cool. It sounds literally like the next step is that they can respond to you personally and dynamically based off of what you're talking about. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, can you imagine like Witcher 3 or one of the Elder Scrolls games where you're just like, I'm looking for a dude who's got, black hair and he was seen doing these things around town, and then people chime in, and
Right.
tell you, and you have a dynamic conversation with them. That would take the role-playing scene to like the next level.
And I
That
know
would be
people
crazy.
have said that people would just try to break the system. And it's like, yeah, but you would just put,
Sure.
I have no idea how you'd program this, but you would just have parameters around, like they can only talk about a topic within this parameter,
Yeah.
So you can't try to like romance every character in the game or have them say
I'm sorry,
ridiculous
Matt.
things.
You can't have a relationship with everyone in the town.
I just want to be loved.
Maybe you could.
I just want to be loved.
They're going to make that game too. Oh my God.
They will. 100%.
It's probably already in development. It's probably out right now. It came out this week. It was announced at Gamescom, the AI NPC romancing game. You know what'd be funny about that is like all the nerds with no game would like just be failing. They'd be striking out. All the NPCs turn them down. They're like, but I just want a relationship.
Dude, that's already my life. Why would I want to play a game like that where I get shut down by everybody?
That would be great. It's like Elden Ring of matchmaking, where you lose to everyone.
Isn't
You're
that just
like,
real
okay.
life? It's okay. You know what? I feel personally attacked right now.
Sorry,
I did just think though, so this is why the whole AI thing gets really murky, because if you do have an NPC and it's talking to you, you would probably need to be voice acted, but you're not going to be able to have a voice actor have all the lines voice acted, so that you would need to use their voice and then use the AI to then recreate their voice in. So it's like, would voice actors want, and I feel like right now they wouldn't want companies to use their voice in that manner,
Yeah.
to have them say anything, because that gets into. So it sounds really cool in theory, as long as it's
that
well.
part of what the actor strike is right now? I think
That
that might
is
have been
part of it.
of
Yes, yeah.
where they're like, Hollywood started digitally scanning all these like celebrities.
Yeah, we'll give you
and
$100, and then
yeah.
we'll be able to use your image forever in all eternity and get wrecked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, maybe if maybe for your records, and if that actor passes away one day and you want to like,
And they
do
agree
something-
to it.
Yeah, and they agree to it, but like while they're alive and like taking their work from them, it's,
It's creepy.
it is creepy. I'm on the fence with all of this stuff because, on one hand, I think the laws of economics and competition and free market and stuff will be like, okay, we have a company now that's using AI tools to make their video games twice as good as before. Well, the other company is going to be like, okay, well, now we need to outdo them. So we need to hire more people. It's all just I think the products are going to get better. At the same time, if voice actors go out of work because we're able to fully simulate voices using AI stuff, which is getting remarkably good now.
It is.
It's getting wild.
Crazy. It's hard to close Pandora's box, and I feel like it's already opened.
Yeah. The thing that really strikes me as being super useful with tech right now is the voice modulation stuff, where I'm not a voice actor, and if I tried to do VO for my video game and everybody sounded like me, it would be terrible.
Awkward. Yeah.
Right? It would be awful. But because I can modulate my voice to sound like other people, all of a sudden I could play 10 characters now and you wouldn't know. Although they would have similar cadence, so you might be able to get one actually really talented character actor who can do a whole bunch of different cadences and then modulate their voices to sound like different people. It does ultimately put people out of work.
That's the thing,
but
is
maybe
yeah.
here's the counter argument though. Maybe it allows that 3-man dev team to now have a RPG with voice actors for all the characters in the game, which normally would have been relegated to a studio with $100 million budget.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's slippery
It's a tough,
because you're
it's
just
really
like,
tough spot. It's going to be pretty wild from here on out. Because you're right, there's the benefit of the smaller teams being, it opens up so many more possibilities for, that's the same true for like, you know, AI art is if you have an idea in your brain and you want to put it down on paper so other people can see it, but you're not an artist yourself and you don't have the funds to be able to accomplish that, then AI art sounds appealing. But also at the same time, it's AI, so it...
yeah.
Ugh.
Do you mean,
Ugh.
Matt, do you mean like the background of this podcast?
Yeah. Well, we are getting a brand new one, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah. So I used AI to make this background here in a style that I ultimately wanted somebody else to make by hand.
Right.
So we
And
do
we're
have
going,
an
and
artist
we're going to be
that
paying
we
someone.
are paying money to make this background. And I sent him this background. It said similar color tones and lighting and stuff, but I really like your art style and what you've done. So can you do it in your style, but kind of use this as reference?
And that
So,
might be where
yeah.
it goes, is people use as a tool for a reference to put down kind of what they have in mind, and then they hire someone to finish it off and make the final touches. But
Yeah.
who knows how many people will really do that? Right?
Yeah. And I've been open. I made a YouTube video a while back talking about making thumbnails with AI art, which before using these
It's
tools,
happening all over
I was doing
or
it by,
YouTube.
yeah, I was doing it 100% by hand, or my editor would do it by hand. Like people are doing it, but now it's like, it frees up more time for me, but it's also a thing where it just doesn't do everything I want it to do. I can't sit there and be like, can you change that a little and move that over there and do this? It's getting better, but it's also at a thing where I can use it for some stuff and then it's super limited. And then on top of that, you have Photoshop, which is what everybody uses to make their thumbnails, right? Or what's the other program? There's a freebie version of it, but Photoshop now has AI tools built into it. So you can, if I took a picture of you standing in a forest, Photoshop will know how to cut out the background and isolate you using their better AI tools. So it's all coming together. So the graphic designers who would do your thumbnails anyway are going to be using AI tools because they're going to be using Photoshop to make your thumbnails. And they'll be like, well, I can make it faster and better using these tools. So maybe they'll just make more thumbnails in the same time that they could make
I really don't
fewer.
know.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it's
interesting.
stressful. It's a stressful time for creators in these industries.
A VTuber is going to take your job, Matt.
They've already, are you kidding me? Have you seen Twitch? They're everywhere. They already have.
Yeah, I have seen some of them. Are they getting really popular now?
Oh, they're pretty, yeah. There's a lot of VTubers now, which is cool. I hope they don't take my job. I kind of like my job, but.
Now, when you say that, do you mean somebody that's completely fake or somebody that's doing an animation over themselves?
An animation, yeah. It's not a complete, no. Oh, so you're saying one day AI is just everyone's going to be watching.
Yeah. Well, they do have some profiles that are people that don't exist.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, this is completely based on somebody that's not there, and we just tell it what to say and do, and then
I would like to think that there will be some novelty to that, and I do think there probably will be some AI that is unrecognizable. You just think it's a real person. But I'd also like to think that once people know that it's AI, that people will try to go after content that was created by a person because it's a real person. Hopefully there's a little bit of that inner, that connectedness to it. And it's not
but then we got the NPC fad going right now, Matt.
Yeah,
they want people acting like
NPCs.
Robots. And that is some weird stuff.
That's a whole other can of worms.
It really is, man. I love the internet. It just exposes all these things that you're like, I had no idea this existed, and now it's taking up a significant portion of my thoughts. I'm like, what?
Yep.
How? Okay. Well, we are doomed, but in the meantime, What do you think about? I know you're gonna play it, obviously, but what are you thinking about Starfield, man? It's coming out on the 1st, right? For pre-orders?
Yeah,
Or
for pre-orders.
Super edition people.
I mean, I'm gonna play it. I'm trying not to get too hyped. I don't think there's been any reviews. There might be reviews by the time this podcast goes live.
I've seen some reviews out there. I don't know if they're leaked or
they may be leaked.
I don't know what the NDA time is. Okay.
But they're reporting that it's the least buggy Bethesda game ever, which is kind of an odd title for a headline there.
It's an embarrassing brag if you think about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's the least buggy. It's like, okay. But supposedly they've got like they have all of Microsoft behind it right now trying to QA test it. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. There was an article headline there. I think it was an executive at Bethesda said that it takes 130 hours for the game to really get started. And my first thought is, you've got to be kidding me. How is that appealing? Like, I know there is this like a subset of people that's what they want. They want to just lose their self to a video game. But I hear 130 hours and I just get exhausted.
Yeah, I try and think about it where I'm thinking, is this my opinion as a content creator or is it my opinion as a gamer? Because content creation and streaming affects how you view games to an extent.
True.
Where you're like, oh, when I play Star Citizen, I get super annoyed when it takes me like 4 hours to capture anything I can use to make a video with.
True.
Right?
And that does affect your enjoyment. Yes.
Yeah, it affects my enjoyment, my judgment of the product. So I try and be aware of that. And if I was somebody who just loved to sink into one game for a long time, then maybe Starfield would appeal to me.
And that's what Baldur's Gate 3 has been for a lot of people, and me included. I have over 100 hours in that game, and it just came out a couple of weeks ago. So I'm not opposed to the idea.
But you're probably hitting some of the high points well before 100 hours, right?
Right. So apparently he did like 80 hours of side quest, and then he did like 50 hours of the main quest. It's like, but then there was also Todd Howard said it takes 30 to 40 hours to complete the main story. So I don't know what is going on with these hour numbers being flown around. I have no clue. But I am thrilled to jump in because I like RPGs.
Yeah. I will say the graphics look a lot better than the initial stuff that they were showing off a couple of years ago. And the gunplay looks interesting now. Looks more competent. You can like jetpack around and it's not just basic corridor shooting stuff where, Fallout's gunplay I found super boring.
Yeah.
But this looks way more interesting. So if they're going to try and eat up that many hours, hopefully having all the different mods and ways to approach combat will add to it. I just want to build a cool spaceship, man. I think that's like 90% of the appeal to me right now is just Legoing together my spaceship to look like
I'm
whatever
interested to see
want.
how much the spaceship itself and the space gameplay is integral to the story and how focused it is on the game, like the gameplay loop, right? Like, can
versus
you just
the planet stuff?
Yeah. Is it just literally a cool way to transition? And maybe there's a couple of missions here and there where you actually use the ship. Do you need to have different ships for different situations? Like, I'm going to go in and move cargo for a quest. Is another one going to be focused on combat? How is that all going to work? I haven't been deep diving into any of their videos, so they may have explained it, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know what to think of it either because they showed off the like Optimus Prime spaceship that somebody built, which was neat, but at the same time, a lot of the art in the game is inspired by NASA and real rocket ships and real space exploration. And then they're like, here's Optimus Prime.
Well, I think that's what's so fun about these RPGs is it's a sandbox. You can do whatever you want. You want to be, I think there's a starting class.
I can make the Rocinante if I want to make the Rocinante. And you can make Pikachu if you want to make
why
Pikachu.
not? It's a single player. Do whatever you want.
Fair enough. I think for me, I was hoping that there'd be a little more sim behind it. Where
I don't think there is.
Yeah, and from the gameplay, it looks like when you're flying through space and shooting, it looks very, very basic. And I did read a leaked review that sort of echoed some of that stuff.
Okay.
And made a lot of comparisons to No Man's Sky, which concerned me a little bit because I can't play No Man's Sky for more than 30 minutes before I just want to like throw my monitor off the table. And I know lots of people like what the game is.
Or
I think that's it. I think it's just because it's just this kind of lame task-oriented gameplay where it's like collect a bunch of this, now collect a bunch of that, now collect it, and I'm like, holy crap! When am I going to do something fun?
Right.
And
you don't like sucking up materials on a deserted planet with.
There's neat stuff there. I like that you can like burrow and make caves and build stuff, but.
It's all very surface. It's all very surface
Yeah.
level. It doesn't really lead to anything. So you can make a cool base and you can do stuff with it. I think they did add in a freighter ship. Like you can have like a giant ship that becomes like your home base, which is really cool.
I haven't played since any of that stuff was added to the game, so
Yeah.
maybe it's way better. But if Starfield echoes a lot of the same notes,
Essentially, you just don't want it to be shallow.
Sky, I'm going to be
I want some complexity and some depth to it.
1,000 worlds to mean something. I want them to be interesting. I don't want to see the same our auto-generated base pop up on a different planet
over and over again.
Like that's going to really suck some of the fun and I'd rather a much smaller game that's handcrafted versus a giant game.
Well, you are going to get some handcrafted, but
sure.
Without a doubt, there's going to be auto-generated. I mean, there's 1,000 planets.
Yeah. I want them to, do you remember Spore, Matt? I want them to be able to create the aliens. I want players to be able to design their own aliens.
Be cool.
and populate the worlds
Why
with all
not?
the,
Yeah.
Do you remember the Sporn, Matt? Do you remember Sporn?
Sporn?
Yeah, shortly after Spore came out, as in the day of, the entire universe in which it was populated by other players' creations started to consist of nothing but phallic aliens.
Oh, that's where okay. I had a feeling that's what okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
Speaking of which, the latest
What do you mean,
spaceship-
speaking of which?
Speaking of which, Matt, the heart of what this podcast
do we have like
is
a
about.
sponsor or something? Like where is this going?
Matt really enjoys Blue Chew, and no.
I was like, where is we going with this?
I would like to get them as a sponsor. Actually, Blue Chew, if you're out there, Matt and I are willing to test your product.
Just because we're boomers,
not together, but just for fun, not because we need it. Okay. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
Matt, your face you're like, oh God, level. Should I ixnay on the ixnay?
There was a lot of commercials.
Where was I going
there was,
before
I have
you
no
interrupted me on my phallic journey?
Apologies. I think you were about to reference something with...
The new spaceship in Star Citizen looks just like a dick.
Oh.
And the radar, the little shield generator thing is like, it's very...
Is it very
There's
Austin
no
Powers
mistaking
like?
it. Exactly like that. And the memes will be endless, and it's fun. Also, the main feature of the spaceship is that it grows in length when you hit the transform button. I don't know
Did
how
they
this
do it?
is
They
an
did it
accident.
intentionally. They had to do it intentionally.
I don't know. What I think happened is
Why
like
does it
the
extend?
concept.
What
I
is the
think
point of
somebody
that?
drew it from a certain angle for the concept art, and then everybody was like, "Yeah, that looks great." And then as the modeler's making the ship, he's like looking at it from top down and is like, "Guys, well, we're 400 hours into designing this ship. We just got to keep going at this point."
Perfect. I love it.
It's gonna be great.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you know what the
Too
ship
many
is
jokes.
called?
The whole sea. Yeah, I don't know. There's a entire line of whole series. So it goes from whole A to whole E. And then the running joke was like, if you like the whole C,
whole.
wait.
I'm thinking like a whole, like a whole.
Yeah, sorry,
meatball.
HULL.
I got you.
So yeah, the running joke is like, if you like the look of the whole C, wait till you see the whole E, because they just get progressively bigger.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, so it's just going to be nothing but Dixon space pretty soon.
That's fine.
Whatever. It's like Bezos's Blue Origin rocket,
Yeah.
He just made it look straight up like a wiener. You're like, okay. It's aerodynamic, I guess.
Yeah.
If we're going to send something to space, You know, may as well send something.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah. It's all ego driven these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you going to do 130 hours of Starfield, or?
Depends on if I'm having 130 hours of fun. I mean, I basically did that for Baldur's Gate, so why not? If as long as I'm having fun, I don't care. But if I hit like a wall, because it's what happened with me in Skyrim, is I put 60 hours in, I beat the game, and then I was exploring like crazy. I hit the 60-hour mark, and then I just fell off. I was like, okay, I've done everything I want to do. I could explore more, and there could be some fun stories, but it depends on if I'm just enjoying it.
Fair enough.
So you're going to be trying it, aren't you?
Yeah, I am going to be trying it. It's hard as a content creator too, because I hear that hour mark and I'm like, man, I want to play it and I want to absorb it, but I also need to make content and play my genre of games and make sure I'm hitting the different game notes. So I'm almost worried about it. When Diablo 4 came out, it hit my content hard because I was like, well, I could make a video or I could just keep grinding Diablo 4, and it went off the rails. But I am excited for it. What do you think about like this time right now? The amount of good games that are coming out and about to come out is insane. I don't know if I remember any time in the last 10 plus years that's been this saturated. It must be sort of pandemic related where like
I'm sure it is.
Stuff got backed up for a while and now it's all coming out at the same time and devs are just like, please buy all of our games, and somebody's like, I've only got $60, man. Like,
and I'm buying all of them because it's been incredible. You're right. I'm loving it. Even like, it's not even just AAA games. It's indie games. It's AA games. Like there's going to be a bunch of Dark Soul clones coming out that are looking really good, like Lies of P, and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head for some reason. So Lords of the Fallen, and it's just back to back to back to back, and it's a good time to be a gamer, but also wallets hurt.
Yeah, and I guess from the non-content creator perspective, you buy your game now for $60, and then half a year goes by. Some of these games are going to be on sale. You pick them up later. Or you buy a better computer in a year, and you're like, now I can play that crazy game that looked insane and would have killed my computer. Yeah. I'm kind of, I don't get to talk about that many non-action first-person oriented games on my YouTube channel because that's sort of the audience that I've built. But one of the games I'm looking forward to a lot is Homeworld 3.
I don't know much about it, but that one comes out soon, correct?
God, yeah. Homeworld 2 must have come out, I think it was still like a 90s era game. It's an old franchise, but it did space RTS better than any other space RTS for its time. I know there's been a bunch of cool like Sins of a Solar Empire and stuff like that have really gone crazy with space RTS, but in terms of actually manipulating and controlling a space fleet in a really important way and having combat that feels and looks real, they kind of knocked it out of the park. And then I think what happened with the franchise is two different companies ended up owning different parts of the IP, and they could never get together and decide to make a game for whatever reason. So the whole Homeworld thing just died forever. And then I guess a studio, this is me trying to remember a very old story, so I could be off on some of these details, but then I think eventually one studio came into ownership of all the Homeworld rights again, and they started producing it. They did make a mobile game, which I didn't try out because I'm just not interested, but I am excited about Homeworld 3. Like the story behind it is very Battlestar Galactica, where like I think Earth in the original game is like destroyed like right at the start, and then it's about finding a new world for the fleet of people who survived.
Now, how do they handle the 3D space?
In the first game, they just give you controls that allow you to change your elevation.
Just go up and down, huh? Because like in StarCraft or other real-time strategies, it's just you're top down and it's just you're clicking on a 2D space, so it makes it more manageable. But if there's a 3D space going on,
here's the thing about it, and I can't remember for sure. I need to look into this more because they did launch some new gameplay for it at Gamescom, and I haven't watched it yet. But I think they might be backing off a little bit with some of the extreme depth that you could get from it before, because it turned out it didn't really add much to the gameplay. And maybe some people will disagree with me on this, but if a fleet is attacking you from like up above versus down below versus from behind, rarely are they going to catch you off guard enough that it's going to kind of mess with you. You can kind of simulate the exact same mechanics in a 360-degree angle in a 2D planar environment where, okay, I'll attack them from the left instead of the right, and they won't be prepared for that. You can sort of replicate most of the same strategies without.
I mean, it would give you
total
potentially
3D.
another plane to flank, but
Yeah.
I've never played, so I'm only speaking from ignorance.
In my opinion, it didn't add that much to the original games, and we'll see what they do with the current ones, but it does seem like a lot of the levels are designed a little bit more planarly, where like if you're going to go under or around, it's more set up for that, as opposed to just like, let's drop our whole fleet 1,000 kilometers negative versus and positive. Like I think it added just too much to like traversal time and stuff, where you're like, I'm going to do this massive flank strategy, and then you're just moving a fleet for like an hour, you know. So.
And it doesn't pan out.
Yeah, but I think you would like it just because the audio, the sound design in the original game is fantastic. Really good score.
I'll probably give it a try.
Yeah, like
I mean, I'm down for. I mean,
stories.
Geez.
Yeah,
I play all sorts. I mean, I played Armored Core. Apparently, I've been playing sci-fi is the theme lately with all these space. You know, that's the theme with all these games is science fiction. But Armored Core, I tried out Skull and Bones. The beta finally was playable, and you could like stream it and stuff. So that was fun.
Is that the Ubisoft game?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that the beta became playable. Okay,
so it's over now, but there was a closed beta that people could actually show off. And it's wild to think that originally was going to be DLC for Assassin's Creed Black Flag all the way back in 2013.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was going to be DLC. That's wild.
At least according to my friend. And then in 2017, I think it became a standalone, and now we're in 2023 and it's still not out, and it may not even come out this year. I think they're aiming for this year, but that has had the wildest long ride.
Yeah. Here, it's interesting about that because there's a lot of parallels with what that game's trying to do with, like, say something like Star Citizen, where when you try and make a massive game that needs to have multiple people interacting on like vessels moving around through the world and have all the net code like work out well, and it gets really complicated, I think, and I think they run into a huge amount of technical issues.
I think they also ran into, how do we make this fun? You're just on a ship, and there's no boarding, there's no first person.
Black Flag had, I didn't play it too much, but like
I didn't play it at all, but
okay, but the piracy gameplay and that people talk about it being fantastic.
Yeah, they enjoyed it.
Maybe that's sort of the premise, is like you do that. I mean, what's the other pirate game that's out right now that
Sea of Thieves?
play? Sea of Thieves, right? It would probably be borrowing a lot of that with a more serious tone.
Well, it is more serious, but in Sea of Thieves, you are a cog in the machine of the ship, right? And it's also more basic in the sense that you're just steering along and sailing along. In this, it's only one, so one person controls the entire ship. While in Sea of Thieves, you're manning the cannons, and then you're going and you're trying to bail water.
You're not co-oping ships in Black Flag?
No. So if you're with a friend,
that's disappointing, actually.
Right. So I think this is what the issue they ran into, is they weren't sure how to make it work.
I thought the whole premise was to do a co-op.
No. So you're just by yourself. But what's fascinating is that they're going for it to be, it's a pirate game. It's kind of gritty,
sure.
But there is healing weapons. So you have a cannon, and you can shoot a healing mortar onto your teammate, and if you hit your teammate, it will heal their hull for like 800 health or whatever the amount is. But then you also can have builds where you can tank a lot of hits, and you can get up in their face and deal like fire damage. You can ram them. Like they're going a more
It seems a
arcadey
little
route.
weird with
It
the
is
healing
weird.
stuff, you know, because you're
It
like,
is.
I'm the healing pirate ship. You're like, you remember those from
Right,
Pirates of the
right.
Caribbean? Like, what are you talking about?
So I don't know how it's going to play out, but I did do a little bit of PvP with a friend, and it was fun. Like there was like all these
Yeah.
people everywhere, and I was being chased, but at the same time I was trying to take out someone else's sail so that they became essentially disabled for like 10 seconds, so they couldn't chase after me. Or if we were chasing after someone else, getting a great shot off on their sail to disable them.
That sounds cool.
And then they would come on in and ram them while they're sitting like basically a sitting duck.
Yeah.
And flame them. It's
It sounds, I kind of take back some of what I said earlier because with a pirate game, you think of one-on-one ship combat.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, okay, they're going to both broadside each other and then people are going to swing on ropes across and you're going to sword fight. But in naval warfare of that era, it was like they're called ships of the line because they would form these lines. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I always thought it meant. Where they would form these lines and then they become these very strategic formations. And if another formation approached them, they would be in a really powerful like position to like just absolutely lay waste to the first ship that came in.
right.
And so they had all these sort of strategies based on multi-ship combat, obviously, fleet-based combat. So if they're going that route, that sounds kind of interesting. Like, I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with naval warfare. Like, I love World of Warships. It's one of my favorite games.
Positioning comes into play because obviously, so you got cannons on your front, back, left, right, and so you need to position yourself where you want to make sure that you're not getting hit and leaving yourself vulnerable. But you can, if you're like in between multiple targets, you can switch between your left and your right very quickly. Shoot while they're reloading. Maybe hit someone in your front if you're being chased. So you're constantly trying to position yourself while being able to do enough damage to come out on top and take out multiple targets. So it's got some cool mechanics and there's some enjoyment there. I just am worried about like long-term enjoyment. Like, will it be able to last? Because you're also
will it be as fun as Sea of Thieves, which is already out there, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of capturing that pirate market to an extent.
There is going to be Fortress. So you... It was only the early stages, so I don't know what the end game fortresses are going to look like. But you essentially pillage cities, and so there'll be like a big city, and you'll have to take out their fortifications and walls and their towers, and then they're going to be reinforced by ships, so you have to take them out as well. And I could see that being engaging and having them essentially be like boss battles, kind of, where you have to maybe come in with a team, not like a raid, but just with a couple of friends to take them out. That could be a lot of fun. I don't know. It's a game, and it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Right? It's very different, which is, I think, something we need from AAA studios these days, because I think they're very creatively bankrupt right now. They're just like, please, indie devs, come up with a cool new franchise hit that we can steal from you, because we don't know what else to do. You're not excited
about the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 that's just going to be remastered versions of Modern Warfare 2 maps, and that's it?
I couldn't believe that they were doing, like, I was writing the story on it, and halfway through writing like the little news blurb on it for some content, I was like, wait, isn't Modern Warfare 2 the last game? Wait, what's happening right now? Like, I must have something wrong. I had to like triple check it. I'm like, they're doing them back to back. What's happening right now? It's just like, well, it's so weird.
I'm assuming, I don't think they've come out for the reason, but they announced that there was going to be a lull in between. They were going to stop their whole yearly cycle for COD. So this was going to be a off year because a lot of the focus would be on the live service for Modern Warfare 2, because they assumed that game would be kicking ass. But it sounds like while it sold like hotcakes, everyone was on board at the beginning. It's really fallen off on their player count, to my understanding.
Okay.
And so then they're like, well, we got to make a new game to make money now, so they had to rush, and that's why we're getting Modern Warfare 3 so quickly, and why they're just remastering old maps, because that's just faster. It's a theory that I have, and it seems reasonable.
I think this is your unique theory that you have, and you should really tell people about it. It's a good thing we're doing this podcast so people know. It's interesting, man. What do you think we're gonna have the same COD and Battlefield scene in 6 years from now? Do you think they're going to be cranking out titles at the same rate? It's hard to know if the genres are changing too much or players' interests are changing too much to make the same games at the rate that they're making them.
I mean, I don't think Call of Duty's going anywhere. I do think that Modern Warfare 3 is going to be, like, it's going to sell. It's COD, but I don't think it's going to be as popular. They're like, the next year is going to be the big COD because they'll have dev time on it. Battlefield is up in the air.
Yeah, we have no idea what that next title is going to be.
Yeah, I literally no idea.
Clueless.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm confident that Call of Duty is going to be around for decades. I don't see that it's not going to die.
They'll evolve it as they need to, right? Because COD is, I mean, it mostly seems like it's about Warzone now, right?
Yeah.
Where before battle royales were a thing, which was not that long ago, it was all about the normal multiplayer stuff and getting your nukes and whatever, right? And
but Battlefield, I have no idea. Because if the next game is next game is a flop, they could put it on the back burner like they did with Medal of Honor. It's like, well, this just isn't working anymore. But it's Battlefield. Like, how could?
I think unless they really monumentally screw up, which I don't think Vince Zampella is going to let them do.
I don't think so either.
His name's attached to it. I think they can do it because there's. I think if anything that the market is showing us right now is that there's a huge demand for games like Battlefield because they're cloning them and they're making variations of them. And BattleBit, they've got the Squad and the World War II version of Squad.
Loose.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of variation. There's a bunch more of those games, right? And they all have player bases and there's all people that want to play them. So people are building all these little games around the Battlefield franchise because the formula is fun and entertaining and they like it. So, and nobody's really been able to recreate the exact Battlefield formula despite lots of people trying. They just kind of come close and then fail or miss this key ingredient. And DICE has been the only company that's been able to sort of recreate that. So as long as they can just kind of stick to the basics, I think they have a pretty solid franchise for quite a while. It's just whenever they go outside the basics of like, let's make them heroes, let's evolve the player count for no reason, right? Like if you're going to evolve the player count, do it because it plays incredibly well. But
BattleBit, I think, was exactly that. It was the basics of Battlefield sandbox, and it exploded, and it had like 87,000. They're down to 13,000 peak right now, but that's still really good for an indie game that was made by 3 people. Like that would have been huge for a launch game for like 3 developers. But we're now months after it's launched and it's still doing pretty well. And once they do like their 1.0 update, I'm sure a lot of people will return. If they keep updating it regularly, people will come back. And like that's more players than Battlefield is on Steam. Not total because there's console and Origin, but just on Steam alone, that's sizable.
It's huge. And I was speaking with one of the devs and they said they have the budget to basically work on it for another 5 years or more. So that's what they want to do. So can you imagine battle? Because it's not going to get graphically outdated. It's already the bottom of the food chain.
I'm kind of hoping that they try to maybe spice up the graphics slightly. Yeah.
I talked to him about adding in ambient occlusion, just basic shadows to the game. So
shadows.
And because you go down a hallway really in that, and you can't even tell the difference between the ceiling and the wall because there's no edge shadows, you know? So it looks really bad.
It looks horrible.
But they said they don't want to inject too much graphical parity. So if somebody can't run ambient occlusion, they don't want the person running it to either have an advantage or disadvantage. And I'm like, I can respect that. But
still.
Yeah. Something that I wanted to do last episode, but we didn't do this episode, was sort of recap a little bit of movies, books, TV stuff that maybe you've been watching. People were asking about that, and we talked about that before we did the podcast. Thought it would be a nice little end cap maybe to an episode.
Okay.
What you watching?
I'm not. I mean, I'm watching all the anime. I'm just kidding. I'm not. No, not really. I've been reading. A series called Cradle. It is about a boy who
In his cradle.
in his cradle, right? It's you know what a shonen is in anime?
Nope.
Oh God, it's a
Nerd.
shonen, it's Naruto. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I know what Naruto is.
Dragon Ball Z is a shonen. Basically, it's action, right? It's action geared towards kind of like a younger, not younger,
Okay.
but yeah. So
Where
it's
they
basically
run with their arms backwards.
yes,
I'm just-
yeah,
yeah,
no,
yeah, no.
exactly.
Okay,
It's
okay.
it's a book. It's essentially a book shonen, and it's about a boy who has no power in a world where everyone is overpowered, right? And it's essentially him rising through the ranks, and they literally have ranks. They're literally called like different tiers until he reaches the point where they basically become gods. Yeah, it's fun. It's nonsense. It's a power fantasy. It's not high art, but I've been really enjoying it, and I'm on book 11 of 12 right now. So
Holy crap.
they're quite short. Like the early books are only
Yeah.
300, 400 pages, so it's a quick read.
I've noticed that about the weird little niche or more niche genres. They just crank out books like it's nobody's business. I started a long time ago when I read books, got into the Honor Harrington books.
Uh-huh.
And I was like on book 11 before. I was like, what am I doing? I'm reading so many of these books. It's the same thing. I mean, they're good. I like them, but they got me on 11 books, I was into it, but
Yeah.
it's wild. And then like some of the greatest or the most notorious books in fantasy or sci-fi are like 2 books, or something
Right.
like that.
I mean, I've got series like Dresden Files, and they're on book like 15 or something. It's nuts. But
Yeah.
so I've been reading that. I've really been enjoying it, even though it's reaching its cap. There's going to be a big conclusion, and it's so like out there now in terms of power level. Like
Are they Super Saiyan level where they're like
Oh, yeah.
blowing up planets
Oh,
and stuff?
they're even further than that now.
What's beyond blowing up planets?
Universes.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Oh
like
my
he's so I'm not even kidding. The kid starts off with nothing. And I don't want to get into spoilers, but like he rises to the point where
Yeah.
like power levels are just bonkers.
Over 9,000?
Over at least over 9,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. So,
What about you? You been watching movies or something?
let's see. I tried to start. I wanted to talk about Ahsoka, but I hadn't had time to watch it. And I started to watch it last night, and I was really tired, and I fell asleep.
Oh no. And that
In the
wasn't
episode.
indicative of the show being boring. It was you just tired.
I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to give it another try. I've been Star Wars has mostly been misses for me.
It has been quite a lot of misses
Yeah.
for me too.
I really liked Andor.
Andor
I
was
feel like
great.
there's a giant division in the Star Wars fan base. There's people who just want like glowy lightsaber stuff, and then people who want deep character writing, and they seem to like hate each other's shows, But I like Andor. I like the stuff that takes its time, has really well-crafted worlds, and like interesting narrative stuff, complex characters.
I think Andor is probably the best form of content we've gotten out of Star Wars in a very long time.
I think since the original trilogy.
I would agree.
I think it's the best thing that's come out since the original trilogy. I wasn't quite getting that vibe from Ahsoka at the start, but we'll see. I did watch Star Wars Rebels, which is the animated show that seems to line up most with Ahsoka because the planet that they're on at the start.
Yeah, I knew you
is
liked
like,
that one.
It's love hate for me because
Oh,
it's
okay.
like
All right.
all the animated shows are like half written for adults and half written for children, but
That's why I couldn't
it's-
get into it.
yeah, it's hard because you'll just get an episode that's like very campy and lame, and you're
Mm-hmm.
just like, man, fast forward, this is lame. And then they'll have an episode that's great, that's got like really good like backstory and narrative stuff, and like episodes where I'm like choking back tears, and then other episodes where it's like it feels like an episode of Barney or something. You're just like, what is this? So,
And there's nothing
was
wrong
some
with
really
it being
good
geared
stuff.
towards children. It's just I tried the first couple episodes and I was just like, this isn't for me. And then people were like, oh, you just got to wait until a couple more. I'm like, I don't want to have to watch seasons to get to the good part,
Yeah, that's been a big problem with a lot of the Star Wars lores. I like the universe and the lore and everything that they build, but a lot of the writing and execution is really hard to watch. So I've kind of stayed up to date with a lot of it, but I also don't enjoy most of it. You know, there's like pockets of gold in there if you dig for it.
Yep.
And that's about it. I will say, when it comes to sci-fi, though, and that seems to be the theme of the year, sci-fi is just going nuts. Star Trek Strange New Worlds is solid. I just finished season 2.
Really?
And I've hated all the latest Star Trek shows.
And I've hated Star Trek my entire life.
Yeah, no. I loved Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
I started to fall off with Voyager, but I can respect the show a bit. And then, but most of the newer stuff, Discovery, I think, was the show before this.
Didn't they bring back Picard and all that? Were those pretty
Picard
misses too?
was garbage.
Oh,
Discovery was garbage. I couldn't finish them. They're so bad. But this one is
I'm
very
surprised
much...
there's so many.
Yeah.
I'm surprised the franchise has like stayed relevant for so long.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is such a huge IP that it's like one of those things that they keep bringing back. It's just, it's got a different director, different direction, different ideas behind it. And so you never know what you're going to get with each show. And the last 2, at least, have been pretty bad. So they've been hard to watch. I watched a couple episodes of them and was
This
just
one
like,
has a whole new crew. Is it like whole new stories and stuff?
Yes, the time period of the original series, so Kirk and Spock from the very old school show.
Okay.
But it's following Captain Pike, but Spock is also a crew member, and it's got like young Uhura on it. I think it's good. It's not like I've heard Game of Thrones, like where you're going to be talking about. Did you see that episode?
Oh, yeah.
It's more serialized, but it's solid. It's like if you liked the original Star Trek formula, this is very much like a tribute to that, and I like it. I think it's solid. It's some of the best Star Trek content that's come out in a long time. So
yeah, I like Star Trek. I've just never really been in love with it, so I never like seek it out. But maybe I'll have to give it a try.
And I couldn't blame you depending on what show you came into. Yeah. If you came into Star Trek on the wrong show, you'd be like, what are people talking about? This show is garbage. So, yeah. So that's my recommendation. Have you watched any movies or anything?
No, I've just been playing a lot of video games. Lots and lots of games.
You and your streamer lifestyle, man.
I know.
I'm kind of excited for the upcoming Rebel Moon. Have you read anything
I saw the
about
trailer
that?
for it, and I can't believe that's one movie. It like the amount of action and craziness and characters, and it's like, this is one movie? And it's going to be split into 2, but I think the trailer was just this first one, and it looks... I love sci-fi. I love fantasy, and it looks like they're trying to create something new. And so, it's got lightsabers. So
yeah, well, it wasn't actually supposed to be something new. It was supposed to be a Star Wars movie at one point. He was pitching it to Disney way back in the day. I think like 10 years ago or something.
I actually
like that.
thought it was a Star Wars film when I saw the title.
It was a Star Wars film
because it's Rebel Moon. I think I immediately think Star Wars.
I actually like that he didn't get approval from Disney, because then Disney would have Disneyified it, right? Like they're doing with a lot of the Star Wars stuff. And now it's probably going to be more hardcore, more interesting. He'll probably have way more creative freedom. I think Zack Snyder, I was kind of on the fence with him as a director, but I think when given freedom to do what he wants, because he's done a lot of big franchise stuff, and you never know what's going on behind the scenes, where they're like, sorry, you can't do that.
I enjoyed Justice League.
Yeah, the remake was really good.
What was the Snyder cut?
Which is, I mean, it was a remake. It was so different.
I never saw the original because everyone said it was awful. And then I saw his, and I was like, this is, I mean, it's not high art, but it was fun. And I really enjoyed it. It was just a fun ride. It was a long one, but I enjoyed that I was on it.
Yeah, and I think if that movie's any indication of what Rebel Moon's like, but in a more of a Star Warsy environment, I'm game, right? Like it seems fun. And then finally watched Across the Spider-Verse. Super good. If you haven't seen that,
nope.
Probably, I think those animated ones are like the best Star Wars films.
I need to watch.
They're so good.
Yeah.
Watch the first and second one. They're just brilliant. I won't give anything away.
There's only 2, correct?
Correct, but they're making a third.
Of course.
So the second one sort of shows how it was always planned as a trilogy, but like in a very brilliant way, where the first movie stands on its own, great. And then the second one is like referencing all this stuff in the first one. You're like, what? They set up all this stuff. It's
cool.
really smart.
That's neat.
It's
It's nice.
super good.
It's fun to watch something that's been well thought out and well developed.
Yeah, where you're like, oh, this was like a good uncompromised artistic vision, you know, as opposed to something that looks like it was designed by a committee, you know, or
this is Spider-Man.
Yeah. No Hard Feelings, solid movie. If you're in the mood for a rom-com.
I don't watch I'm a man. I'm a man, LevelCap. I've never even heard of that.
It's not a traditional rom-com. It's not traditional. It's
it has Jennifer
Lawrence
on it. Oh.
It's very funny. It's based on a real Craigslist ad.
No, I saw the trailer for that. It looked interesting.
Yeah. I think it hits the notes. If you're in the mood for it's not going to like blow your mind, because that's not what the movie's meant to do.
It's well, you said it's a rom-com, so.
Yeah, it's like a coming of age / rom-com. Solid.
It looks fun.
I give it 2 thumbs up. It's good if you're in the mood for that.
My review, 2 thumbs.
2 thumbs.
Yeah, I haven't. I wish I watched more. I mean, I guess I have to start watching other things and expanding my horizons other than just gaming. I thought this was a gaming podcast, LevelCap. I wasn't prepared.
People wanted some movie, but hey, you covered us on the book side of things. Okay?
I did.
Read some more books. I don't think we're going to get anything other than fantasy reviews from you, though, are we?
Yeah, you're not really going to get. I mean, maybe some science fiction here and there. But yeah, my foreseeable future is all. I've got like 5 books lined up right now.
Stalker on your list. Put it up there, man. It's
okay.
It's
all right,
good.
I can get Stalker.
It's a short read too. It's quick. It's like maybe a couple hundred pages.
Is there a sequel, or is it just like a one-off?
One-off. Super
Okay.
interesting book, because I think it was written in the Soviet Union as well, and so there's like a foreword about like from the author about what it was like writing a book in that sort of environment, because like stuff has to get like approved by the government.
Wow.
It's wild stuff. So you're reading it, you're like, how did one of the greatest sci-fi books come out of this situation?
Yeah.
But it's cool, man.
Okay, I'll put that on my list.
Yeah, put that one on your list. All right, I think we're good to wrap it up there. Some of the final messaging for the podcast is that we will be doing this every Wednesday. And
wait, every yeah, I know. I'm just kidding.
It's going to be published every Wednesday, but we do have a Patreon thing to help support what we're doing here. By Matimi0, his fantasy novels.
Yes, and it's what I will spend my money on. I will be honest with you. That is where my money goes. Is fantasy.
That's
novels.
where Matimi0's cut of the podcast is going. Is more fantasy novels.
Yeah,
and we got the Patreon. The link for it should be included in the video or on the different podcasting sites. Now we are slowly rolling out to the different podcast platforms. We should be on Spotify now and a few other ones. And Google is approving us. Maybe we're approved. I haven't checked in a day.
Cool.
And then iTunes very soon as well. So we'll be in all your favorite podcast spots. And then people who do become Patreon members will get to join us for the live recording and a Q&A session after the podcast as well, which we will post to our Patreon members. So thank you guys so much for watching. Matt, closing words?
Nope. Thanks for watching, and take it easy.
All right. Thanks, guys.